schools, UCLA and UC Berkeley predominantly, they like to set that notion, look, we have, well, we're very liberal, it's just a safe base, and I think just gathering here today is kind of just calling them out on that, and why isn't it that, we're able to graduate high school, do everything we're asked to do, and we're not getting into these schools, when other students from these predominantly white neighborhoods are doing the same, and they have the luxury of going to, I don't know how many times I've spoken with students that have gone to Europe, and they're like, oh, I did that as my freshman year, it was awesome, and that's their extracurricular activities, that's a privilege that they have, when most of us have to work, I had to work when I was in high school. How many of you had to work during high school? How many of you had to work and drive around your parents, had to live in constant fear of having your family, deported, or, how many of my dad, has been locked up since, I was 3 years old, and, my mother had to raise all three of us on her own, and it's really interesting because she didn't have, she had a sophomore high school education, but even then she had that basic human knowledge that we know that education is a means of liberation, and no matter what, all she wanted was just for us to be the first generation college students of our family. And I think just that basic human right, education's a human right. And, and I think a lot of these, institutions are trying to find these strategic ways of going against that, of taking that to their advantage, how are you going to control the population boom of the Latino descent? Whether you're going to have to do it intellectually, you're going to have to do it at a psychological level. What happens when you're educated and you're able to speak out for yourself and call people out on the policies that they're not following through with, It's like, it's really scary. It's really scary to have students of color in law school, It's really scary to have students that have come from these impoverished backgrounds in legislation, and I think that, don't ever sacrifice your cultural, your personal integrity, I think specifically us, that have struggled, we share common struggles, even no matter what your background is, we share these common struggles of reality, we're not born with a Mercedes at our door, And so it's like, just having a hot plate of food, it was, sufficient enough, And, I'm really touched and I'm really honored to be in front of you today, and I hope, even just dialogue with your friends and your family, making, just, being conscious and mindful of what's going on. This is not right. I think, I think you think about your kids, it's like, a lot of us are young and we're not thinking about that because it's not really something we should be thinking about. But at the same time, how many of you have friends in high school that have kids now? I have a cousin that's a year older than me and he already has 2 kids, and it hurts me because he's my brother. And I know that if he would have easily just got accepted to a university, if he would have easily finished high school, he'd be doing great things right now. But they don't want that reflected, they don't want, I'm an example of the fact that they have space for every student that applies, from these schools. And, and it's just, the people don't want that to happen. And I think I'm not even saying if, when you get into the school you want to get into, you know, don't forget that. Don't forget that. You know, and you know, don't just I encourage you to kind of just spread that knowledge with you know, and just I think the greatest thing we could do is keep that flame of hope for the future. You know, things that, you know, I just want to end off by saying, you know, going into the university, I've always been taught through my familia and through our ancestors, no matter where you're gonna go, I have to always think 7 generations back, know where you come from, so you know where you're going, and 7 generations ahead of you. And I think, you know, we all share this commonality that we, through our struggles, we come together, and you know, we're gonna get what we want. You know, no one has the right to take away what you deserve. If you know what you're worth, go out and get what you're worth.